Antonio Brown back in the headlines, working out for the New Orleans Saints today. Sean Payton saying they're just doing their due diligence. RJ, your reaction to AB back in the news here and possibly headed to New Orleans?
I still don't understand why they would want to do this, but I understand that if you're just going to ask guys to come in, like Brandon Marshall before him, Dez Bryant before him, hey, ask me to come in there. I'll get my Vince Papale on. We can all sit out there and I'll stand on the numbers while Michael Thomas becomes unguardable once again.
All right, let's look at this. Obviously, the timeline, not something that most football players would like attached to their name. And beyond just some of the headlines, it's just been a general season of mystery and some questionable decisions, mostly on social media, for Antonio Brown. So he could be subject, if he were to be signed by any team, of being placed on the commissioner's exempt list. So let's really look at this from the risk-reward factor if you're New Orleans, a team that obviously has Super Bowl aspirations. Do you take the risk in signing Antonio Brown and taking on all that comes with it, which might not even include football in 2019?
I think you do, but I also understand that you got guys like Taysom Hill that I thought were supposed to help you out with this. I also thought that Ted Ginn Jr. was doing a good job. But really, what do you have to gain doing this right here, right now, as you're getting ready, one, to go after a 1 seed, you hope, and try to get this thing back on your turf in New Orleans, and then make a run at the Super Bowl? I don't know why you would invite this distraction in, and I would be eager to understand why, but Sean Payton wasn't really doing much except saying due diligence.
Well, I think this is the thing here. This is a New Orleans organization, as you see what's at stake for them this weekend, that feels strong in what they have and the culture they have in their locker room. They've made signings, not to this level, obviously, with Dez Bryant a year ago. You brought up another name in terms of a wide receiver in Brandon Marshall that they've brought in. So they feel comfortable that they can bring in some guys that maybe have questions surrounding them. But again, to me, the reality is you're probably not getting Antonio Brown this season, so why bring in all of the distraction? Just wait until training camp and do that.
Absolutely, but when you think about what they are trying to do right now with Antonio Brown, maybe they are trying to set it up for next year. Maybe they are trying to make sure that they have some cover for a guy like Michael Thomas, because as we've been talking about this, it just doesn't make sense that he is able to play for them at all in the postseason. So maybe you're saying we got dibs right now and we'll deal with what comes later in 2020.
Yeah, Michael Thomas is fantastic, but he could use some help. So big news out of Atlanta. Falcons head coach and GM Thomas Dimitroff, Dan Quinn, obviously the head coach, will be staying with the team through 2020. Owner and chairman Arthur Blank today released a statement saying, quote, after weighing several factors, including our team's statistical turnaround and our players' focus and effort in the second half of the season, I feel the decision to retain Thomas and Dan with Rich McKay providing close day-to-day oversight of football operations will provide the timeliest route for Atlanta and the Falcons to return to contention in 2020 and beyond. So, RJ, the second half of the season for the Falcons was much better than the way it started. Did these guys deserve to retain their jobs, in your opinion?
No, because I think that Arthur Blank forgot that this team started 1-7. And I get you get the warm and fuzzies from making the Super Bowl, and you were up 28-3 in that game, but you also gave up a 25-point lead. I don't know why you would keep Dan Quinn around, and he went on in that statement to say we've been one of the winningest franchises in the conference. But hey, does that mean that Mike Smith is going to get his job back? I don't think it does. And I don't understand why you would continue to keep the same brain trust right here, right now, going into 2020. Blow it up, start again. I know you got your MLS title to keep you company right now, Arthur, but it's time to get rid of your brain trust.
Continuity is key in the NFL. I couldn't disagree more. This is a situation where injuries have plagued this team for the last few years, and Dan Quinn had, most importantly, the belief of the locker room. They were very public about playing for his job in the back half of the season. If I'm an owner, I love hearing that. And Dan Quinn was humble enough and looked at the reality of the fact that a defensive mind as a head coach, it was too much on his plate to be the play caller on that side of the ball, and he moved those responsibilities to Raheem Morris. He's the defensive coordinator moving forward. So while I'm with you, if they were to falter again here in 2020, you got to find a different direction. But I think we're seeing too much in the league, RJ, that teams are bailing quickly when there is some strong positive roots already in place.
Well, I mean, it's his toy box, right? It's whatever he wants to do, him being Arthur Blank. And I get that Uncle Artie feels like Dan Quinn is the guy, and you mentioned Raheem Morris is now the guy that is actually calling the defense, and I think that's good for them. But are you wasting what's left of Matt Flynn's prime, what's left of Julio Jones's prime? And what are you getting in return, right? I understand you've had injuries with this thing, but I'm not sure that the team is buying into what Dan Quinn is saying, let alone what they're doing offensively or defensively. And let's not forget, Rich McKay is the guy who lobbied for Bobby Petrino, and that didn't go well, did it?
Well, both will be under pressure in 2020, no doubt.